Change doesn't happen in one dramatic moment. It happens quietly, in the smallest decisions you repeat every day. In this audiobook summary of Atomic Habits by James Clear, we'll explore how tiny actions shape identity, discipline, and long-term success. Not through motivation, but through systems that actually work. 1. Tiny habits compound into massive results. Most people believe that real change only comes from dramatic effort. They think transformation requires intense motivation, extreme discipline, or one powerful decision that suddenly changes everything. But Atomic Habits challenges this belief at its core. It explains that lasting success is not built through sudden breakthroughs. It is built through small, almost unnoticeable actions repeated consistently over time. What feels insignificant today can become life-changing tomorrow when it compounds. Imagine an airplane leaving Los Angeles for New York. If the pilot adjusts the direction by just a few degrees, the plane doesn't crash immediately. The change is barely noticeable, but hours later that small shift can land the plane in a completely different city. Habits work the same way. A tiny improvement or a tiny mistake may look harmless in the moment, but given enough time, the gap between them becomes enormous. This is the power of compounding. Just like money grows with compound interest, habits grow with compound behavior. The problem is that humans are wired to chase immediate results. When we start exercising, studying, writing, or building a skill, we expect fast progress. When we don't see visible change, we assume our efforts are useless, so we quit. What we fail to understand is that habits follow a delayed reward system. The results of good habits are often invisible at first, while the consequences of bad habits are delayed. Eating junk food today doesn't make you unhealthy overnight. Skipping one workout doesn't make you weak. But repeat these small choices daily, and months or years later, the outcome feels inevitable. James Clear calls this the plateau of latent potential. This is the phase where you are doing the work, but the results haven't shown up yet. Most people quit in this phase because they mistake lack of visible progress for lack of progress. In reality, the work is accumulating beneath the surface. Just like ice doesn't melt at 31 degrees F, but suddenly melts at 32 degrees F, habits reach a critical threshold. The breakthrough looks sudden, but it's actually the result of countless small actions stacked together. Improving just 1% every day doesn't sound impressive, but mathematically and practically it's revolutionary. Small improvements compound. A 1% daily improvement doesn't just make you slightly better by the end of the year, it makes you dramatically better. More importantly, this mindset removes pressure. You no longer need to be perfect. You don't need massive motivation. You only need to show up and do the small thing today. Read one page. Write one paragraph. Do one push-up. Study for 5 minutes. These actions feel too small to matter, but that is exactly why they work. They are easy to repeat. On the flip side, negative habits also compound. Getting 1% worse every day doesn't destroy your life immediately, but over time it quietly erodes your health, confidence, and future. That's why habits are dangerous in both directions. They are not neutral. They are either building you up or breaking you down, even when you don't notice it. The real lesson here is patience and faith in the process. Success is not about intensity, it's about consistency. The people who achieve extraordinary results are not always the most talented or motivated. They are the ones who stuck with small, positive habits long enough for compounding to do its work. When you commit to tiny improvements daily, you stop chasing motivation and start trusting momentum. And once momentum builds, progress no longer feels forced. It feels inevitable. This is why tiny habits are not small at all. They are powerful. They are the hidden force behind mastery, discipline, confidence, and long-term success. What you do today may feel insignificant, but when repeated, it becomes the story of who you are and the life you build. 2. Focus on identity, not goals. Most people approach change by focusing on outcomes. They set goals like losing weight, earning more money, reading more books, or becoming disciplined. Goals give direction, but Atomic Habits makes a powerful distinction. Goals define what you want to achieve, but identity defines who you become. And lasting change only happens when your habits align with your identity. When you focus only on goals, you are working from the outside in. You are trying to force behavior change without changing the beliefs that drive your behavior. This is why so many people achieve a goal temporarily and then fall back to old patterns. Someone diets hard, reaches their target weight, and then slowly regains it. Someone studies intensely for an exam, passes, and then stops studying altogether. The goal was achieved, but the identity never changed. So the old habits return. Identity-based habits work the opposite way. They start from the inside and move outward. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" you ask, "What kind of person do I want to become?" The shift may sound subtle, but it completely changes how habits stick. A person who says, "I want to write a book," is focused on a result. A person who says, "I am a writer," is focused on identity. Writers write, readers read, athletes train. The behavior becomes a natural expression of who you believe you are. Your current habits are a reflection of your current identity. Every action you take is a vote for the type of person you believe yourself to be. When you skip a workout, you are voting for the identity of someone who avoids discomfort. When you show up and train, even briefly, you are voting for the identity of someone who takes care of their body. One vote doesn't define you, but repeated votes shape your self-image. Over time, you don't just perform the habit, you become the person who does that habit. This is why habits that are tied to identity are so powerful. When a habit becomes part of how you see yourself, quitting it feels like betraying yourself. You don't need motivation to act in alignment with your identity. You don't debate whether to brush your teeth, because you see yourself as someone who takes basic care of their hygiene. In the same way, when you truly see yourself as a disciplined person, consistency stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like self-respect. Another key idea is that identity change doesn't require massive proof. It requires small evidence repeated consistently. You don't need to read 50 books a year to become a reader. You need to read today. You don't need to train like a professional athlete to become someone who values fitness. You need to show up today. Each small action reinforces the story you tell yourself about who you are. The habit builds the identity, and the identity strengthens the habit. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Goals also have an endpoint. Once you reach them, motivation often disappears. Identity, however, has no finish line. There is no moment where you are done being a reader, a learner, or a disciplined person. This is why identity-based habits lead to long-term consistency. You are no longer chasing a result. You are living in alignment with who you believe you are becoming. James Clear emphasizes that the most effective way to change your habits is to focus on who you wish to become, not what you want to achieve. Instead of saying, "I want to be productive," ask, "What would a productive person do today?" Instead of saying, "I want to stop procrastinating," ask, "What does a disciplined person do in this moment?" This reframing makes action immediate and personal. Ultimately, behavior change is belief change. When you change your identity, habits follow naturally. You stop forcing yourself to act differently and start acting differently because it feels right. This is the deepest level of habit change, and it is why identity-based habits are so difficult to break and so powerful to build. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your identity. 3. Systems matter more than motivation. Most people believe success is driven by motivation. They wait to feel inspired, energized, or mentally ready before they take action. When motivation is high, they work hard. When it disappears, progress stops. Atomic Habits challenges this mindset by revealing an uncomfortable truth. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. Systems, on the other hand, are what determine whether you succeed or fail in the long run. Motivation depends on mood, emotions, energy levels, and external circumstances. Some days you feel driven, focused, and disciplined. Other days you feel tired, distracted, or overwhelmed. If your progress depends on how you feel, then consistency becomes impossible. This is why relying on motivation leads to cycles of intense effort followed by long periods of inaction. You start strong, burn out, and then blame yourself for lacking willpower. James Clear explains that successful people don't succeed because they are always motivated. They succeed because they build systems that make progress inevitable, even on bad days. A system is the structure you follow repeatedly, the routines, processes, and environments that guide your behavior. Goals are the outcomes you want. Systems are the daily actions that move you toward those outcomes. Two people can have the same goal, but the one with the better system will always win. Think of a goal as a direction and a system as the road. Without a road, knowing the direction doesn't help. You can want success badly and still fail if you don't have a clear system in place. This is why focusing only on goals can be misleading. Goals don't teach you how to act today. Systems do. A student who wants high grades but has no study routine will struggle. A writer who wants to publish a book but has no daily writing system will stay stuck. Desire alone is not enough. Systems remove the need for constant decision-making. When you have a system, you don't wake up asking yourself whether you feel like working out or studying. The decision has already been made. The habit is scheduled, structured, and expected. This reduces mental friction and conserves energy. Instead of fighting yourself every day, you simply follow the system. Consistency becomes automatic, not emotional. Another powerful benefit of systems is that they work even when conditions are imperfect. You don't need the perfect mood, perfect timing, or perfect setup. You just need to follow the process. On high-energy days, the system keeps you from overdoing it and burning out. On low-energy days, the system keeps you from doing nothing. It creates balance. This is why professionals outperform amateurs. Professionals stick to their systems regardless of how they feel. Systems also shift your focus from results to process. When you obsess over outcomes, every delay feels like failure. When you trust the system, you understand that progress is happening even if results aren't visible yet. This reduces anxiety and increases patience. You stop chasing quick wins and start building something sustainable. The system becomes the source of confidence because you know that if you keep showing up, results will follow. Motivation still has a role, but it should not be the foundation. Motivation can help you start, but systems are what keep you going. The goal of habit building is not to feel motivated every day. The goal is to make action the default choice. When your system is strong, motivation becomes a bonus, not a requirement. In the end, you don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your systems. If you want lasting change, stop waiting to feel ready. Build systems that guide your behavior automatically. When the system is right, progress becomes inevitable, even on the days you feel like quitting. 4. Make good habits obvious. Human behavior is largely guided by what we see, not by what we intend. We like to believe that our actions are the result of conscious decisions, discipline, and self-control. But Atomic Habits reveals a deeper truth. Most habits are triggered automatically by our environment. We don't choose our behaviors as much as we respond to the cues around us. This is why making good habits obvious is one of the most powerful ways to change your life. Every habit begins with a cue. A cue is a signal that tells your brain to initiate a behavior. It could be a location, a time of day, an emotion, or something you see. When cues are clear and visible, habits happen naturally. When cues are hidden or unclear, habits fade away. This is why people struggle with consistency even when they genuinely want to improve. The habit they want to build has no strong trigger in their environment. Most people try to rely on memory or willpower. They say they will study more, read daily, or exercise regularly, but they don't design their surroundings to support these intentions. As a result, the environment silently pushes them toward old habits. Phones are always within reach. Distractions are everywhere. Comfort is easy. Growth is hidden. In this setup, even the strongest motivation eventually loses. James Clear emphasizes that environment is the invisible hand that shapes behavior. If you want to build a habit, you must make the cue for that habit impossible to ignore. When something is obvious, it requires less effort to start. A book placed on your pillow reminds you to read. Workout clothes laid out in the morning remind you to train. A notebook on your desk reminds you to write. These small environmental adjustments remove friction and turn intention into action. This principle works because the brain prefers the path of least resistance. It chooses what is easiest and most visible. When good habits are obvious, they become the default choice. You don't need to convince yourself. You don't need to debate. The cue does the work for you. Over time, seeing the cue repeatedly strengthens the habit loop, making the behavior automatic. Another powerful idea connected to this lesson is habit stacking. Instead of relying on vague reminders, you attach a new habit to an existing one. You use a habit you already do as a cue for the habit you want to build. After you brush your teeth, you meditate. After you open your laptop, you write one paragraph. After you sit at your desk, you review your notes. This creates a clear and reliable trigger. The habit becomes anchored in your daily routine. Making good habits obvious also means designing spaces with intention. Different environments should serve different purposes. When one space is used for everything, your brain becomes confused. Productivity weakens, focus fades. But when you associate a specific place with a specific habit, your brain learns faster. A desk becomes a place for deep work. A bed becomes a place for rest. Over time, just entering that space prepares your mind for the action. The deeper lesson is this: discipline is often a design problem, not a character flaw. If a habit is hard to start, it's usually because the cue is weak or hidden. When you redesign your environment, you reduce the need for self-control. You stop fighting yourself and start guiding yourself. The habit becomes a natural response to what you see every day. When good habits are obvious, consistency becomes easier than inconsistency. You don't need to remember to do the right thing. You see it. And what you see, you repeat. 5. Make bad habits invisible. If good habits are built by making cues obvious, bad habits are weakened by doing the opposite. Atomic Habits teaches that willpower is not the most effective way to break a bad habit. Avoidance is. The less you see a temptation, the less power it has over you. This lesson is not about fighting urges with discipline, but about removing the triggers that create those urges in the first place. Every bad habit starts with a cue, just like a good one. The problem is that many of these cues are deeply embedded in our environment. A phone on your desk invites distraction. Junk food in the kitchen invites mindless eating. Notifications invite constant interruption. Over time, these cues train your brain to crave the behavior automatically. You don't decide to get distracted. The environment decides for you. Most people try to quit bad habits by resisting them. They tell themselves to stop scrolling, stop procrastinating, stop overeating, or stop wasting time. This approach puts you in a constant battle with your impulses. And the truth is, self-control is a limited resource. The more you rely on it, the more likely you are to fail, especially when you are tired, stressed, or emotionally drained. James Clear explains that the most disciplined people are not the ones who resist temptation the hardest. They are the ones who face temptation the least. They design their environment so that bad habits are not constantly triggering their attention. When a cue disappears, the craving weakens. When the craving weakens, the behavior becomes easier to stop. Making bad habits invisible means increasing the distance between you and the trigger. When something is out of sight, it slowly moves out of mind. A phone kept in another room is less tempting than one in your hand. Snacks that are not easily accessible are less likely to be eaten impulsively. Apps that are deleted or hidden are used less frequently. These changes may feel small, but they dramatically reduce the frequency of the habit over time. This principle also highlights how much of our behavior is unconscious. We often believe we choose our habits, but in reality, our environment is constantly nudging us towards certain actions. When bad habits are visible and convenient, they feel automatic. When they are invisible and inconvenient, they feel optional. This shift alone can break long-standing patterns without intense effort. Another key insight is that removing a bad habit cue is often more effective than replacing the behavior itself. You don't need to fight the urge if the urge never appears. By controlling what you expose yourself to, you regain control over your behavior. This is especially important in a world filled with engineered distractions designed to capture attention. The deeper message of this lesson is that freedom is not about unlimited choice. It is about intelligent constraint. When you remove distractions and temptations from your environment, you are not limiting yourself. You are protecting your future self. You are making the right choice easier and the wrong choice harder. Breaking bad habits becomes far less painful when you stop seeing them everywhere. When the trigger disappears, the habit loses its grip. And when bad habits become invisible, better habits finally have room to grow. 6. Make habits attractive. Habits are driven by desire. We repeat behaviors not because they are logical, but because they promise a reward. Atomic Habits explains that the more attractive a habit feels, the more likely we are to repeat it. This is why some habits become addictive while others feel like a constant struggle. The difference is not discipline. It is how the habit is perceived by the brain. Every habit follows a loop: cue, craving, response, and reward. The craving is the engine of the habit. We don't crave the habit itself. We crave the feeling it gives us. We scroll because we crave novelty. We eat junk food because we crave pleasure. We procrastinate because we crave relief. If a habit doesn't feel attractive, the brain has no reason to repeat it, no matter how beneficial it is in the long term. This creates a problem with good habits. Many of them offer delayed rewards. Exercise improves health, but not instantly. Studying builds knowledge, but results come later. Writing improves skill, but progress feels slow. Because the rewards are delayed, the habits feel unattractive in the moment. Meanwhile, bad habits offer immediate pleasure, even if the long-term cost is high. The brain is naturally pulled toward what feels good now. James Clear introduces the idea of temptation bundling to solve this problem. Instead of relying on future benefits, you pair a habit you need to do with something you want to do. You link effort with enjoyment. Over time, the brain starts associating the difficult habit with a positive feeling. The habit no longer feels like punishment. It feels rewarding. At a deeper level, this lesson shows how strongly our social environment influences what we find attractive. We tend to imitate the habits of people around us. If a behavior is normal, praised, or respected in a group, it becomes more appealing. This is why habits spread socially. When discipline, learning, and growth are valued in your environment, they start to feel attractive instead of boring or difficult. Language also plays a role in attraction. How you frame a habit changes how it feels. Saying, "I have to work out," makes it feel like a burden. Saying, "I get to train," reframes it as an opportunity. This small mental shift can change emotional response and increase consistency. The habit itself doesn't change, but your perception of it does. Making habits attractive is not about forcing yourself to enjoy everything. It is about aligning habits with positive emotion. When a habit feels good, even slightly, the brain marks it as worth repeating. Over time, attraction turns into craving, and craving turns into consistency. The deeper truth is that habits stick when they satisfy both the present and the future. When you learn to make progress feel rewarding now, you no longer need to rely on willpower. The habit pulls you forward instead of you pushing yourself. When habits become attractive, consistency stops feeling like sacrifice and starts feeling natural. 7. Make habits easy. One of the biggest reasons people fail to build habits is not lack of motivation, but excessive friction. Atomic Habits explains that the human brain is designed to conserve energy. It naturally avoids effort and chooses the easiest available option. This means that when a habit feels difficult, complex, or overwhelming, the brain resists it. To build lasting habits, the goal is not to work harder, but to make the right actions easier. Most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do over time. They start with habits that are too ambitious. They plan long workouts, intense study sessions, or drastic lifestyle changes. At first, Enthusiasm carries them forward. But as soon as life becomes busy or energy drops, the habit collapses. The problem was never commitment. The problem was design. James Clear introduces the idea that habits should be reduced to their smallest possible form. A habit should be so easy that it feels almost impossible to fail. This is not about lowering standards. It is about lowering the barrier to entry. When starting is easy, consistency becomes natural. When starting is hard, procrastination takes over. This is where the 2-minute rule becomes powerful. Any habit can be scaled down to a version that takes 2 minutes or less. Reading becomes reading one page. Writing becomes writing one sentence. Exercising becomes putting on workout clothes. These actions may seem too small to matter, but they serve a critical purpose. They establish the identity of showing up. Once you start, momentum often follows. And even when it doesn't, you still reinforce the habit of consistency. Making habits easy also means reducing friction in your environment. The fewer steps between you and the habit, the more likely it is to happen. When tools are prepared in advance, action feels automatic. When everything is scattered or disorganized, the brain perceives effort and avoids starting. Small changes in setup can produce massive changes in behavior. This principle works because habits are not built by intensity, but by repetition. A habit that you do imperfectly but consistently is far more powerful than a habit you do perfectly but rarely. By making habits easy, you increase the number of repetitions, and repetition is what wires behavior into the brain. There is also an important emotional benefit to this approach. When habits feel manageable, you stop associating growth with pressure or guilt. You no longer feel like you are constantly failing to live up to unrealistic expectations. Progress feels light instead of heavy. This makes long-term consistency possible. The deeper lesson is that success is often a result of simplifying, not adding. You don't need extraordinary effort. You need a system that works even on your worst days. When habits are easy, excuses lose their power. And when excuses disappear, consistency takes over. 8. Make habits satisfying. Human behavior is shaped by reward. We repeat actions that feel good and avoid actions that feel unrewarding. Atomic Habits explains that for a habit to last, it must feel satisfying, at least in some small way. If a habit is painful, boring, or emotionally empty, the brain has no reason to repeat it, no matter how beneficial it may be in the long run. The challenge with many good habits is that their rewards are delayed. You don't feel stronger after one workout. You don't feel smarter after one study session. You don't see progress after writing a single page. Meanwhile, bad habits deliver immediate satisfaction. Junk food tastes good instantly. Procrastination provides instant relief. Scrolling offers quick entertainment. The brain is wired to favor immediate rewards over future benefits, which is why bad habits are easy to form and good habits are hard to maintain. James Clear highlights that what gets rewarded gets repeated. If you want a habit to stick, you must give your brain a reason to come back to it. This doesn't mean you need massive rewards. Small, immediate signals of progress are enough. When a habit feels satisfying right after completion, the brain learns to associate it with success rather than effort. One powerful way to make habits satisfying is through visible progress. Seeing evidence that you showed up creates a sense of completion. It turns effort into something tangible. This is why tracking habits works so well. Each checkmark, streak, or record acts as a reward. It provides closure and reinforces the behavior. The action may be small, but the feeling of completion is powerful. Another important idea is that satisfaction doesn't always come from pleasure. It can come from pride, clarity, or alignment with your identity. When a habit reinforces the type of person you believe you are becoming, it creates an internal reward. You feel good not because the task was easy, but because it confirms your self-image. This kind of satisfaction is deeper and more sustainable than external rewards. Immediate satisfaction also helps bridge the gap between effort and long-term results. It keeps you engaged during the early stages when visible outcomes are missing. Without this, many habits die before they ever get a chance to grow. When the brain receives a reward now, it is willing to wait for bigger rewards later. The deeper lesson is that habits are not sustained by discipline alone. They are sustained by emotion. When progress feels rewarding, consistency becomes natural. When it feels empty, resistance grows. Making habits satisfying ensures that the brain wants to repeat the behavior, not just tolerate it. In the long run, the habits that survive are not the ones that demand the most willpower, but the ones that provide the most consistent sense of reward. When habits feel satisfying, they stop being something you force and start being something you look forward to. 9. Never miss twice. Perfection is the enemy of consistency. Atomic Habits makes it clear that missing a habit once is not a failure. It is a normal part of being human. Life gets busy, energy drops, unexpected problems appear. What truly matters is not whether you miss once, but whether you allow one miss to turn into a pattern. This is where the rule "never miss twice" becomes powerful. Most people don't fail because of one bad day. They fail because one mistake turns into a story. You skip one workout and the mind says, "I've already messed up." You miss one study session and the thought becomes, "I'm not disciplined anyway." This negative self-talk creates a downward spiral. The second miss feels easier than the first, and soon the habit disappears entirely. James Clear emphasizes that habits are fragile in their early stages. Consistency builds momentum, and momentum is easy to break. Missing once breaks the streak, but missing twice breaks the identity. When a habit is new, repetition is what tells your brain, "This is who I am now." Two misses in a row send the opposite message. They weaken the belief and make quitting feel justified. The "never miss twice" rule removes the pressure of perfection while protecting consistency. It accepts that failure will happen, but it draws a clear line. You can fall off track, but you must get back on immediately. This mindset shifts focus from guilt to recovery. Instead of punishing yourself for slipping, you prioritize returning to the habit as soon as possible. This rule also trains resilience. Anyone can be consistent when conditions are ideal. Real growth happens when you show up after a bad day. The ability to restart quickly is more important than the ability to avoid mistakes entirely. In fact, learning to recover is a habit in itself, and it strengthens self-trust over time. Another important aspect of this lesson is that consistency is about direction, not intensity. One perfect day does not define you, and one imperfect day does not ruin you. What matters is the overall trend. As long as you keep returning to the habit, progress continues. The system stays intact. The deeper message behind this rule is self-compassion combined with discipline. You don't use mistakes as an excuse to quit, but you also don't let them turn into shame. You treat failure as feedback, not as identity. This balanced approach is what allows habits to survive long-term. In the end, success is not built by flawless execution. It is built by the ability to keep going. When you follow the rule to never miss twice, you protect momentum, reinforce identity, and turn small recoveries into long-term consistency. 10. Success is the result of daily votes. Every day, you are voting for the type of person you are becoming. Atomic Habits teaches that habits are not just actions, they are evidence. Each small behavior is a vote for an identity. You don't become disciplined all at once. You become disciplined by repeatedly choosing disciplined actions. Over time, these votes accumulate, and what once felt like effort becomes part of who you are. Most people think identity changes after success. They believe confidence, discipline, or self-belief comes once results appear. But this lesson flips that idea completely. Identity is not built after you win. It is built through the process of showing up. Every time you study instead of procrastinating, you vote for the identity of a focused person. Every time you train instead of skipping, You vote for the identity of someone who values their health. These votes may feel small, but they are powerful because they are repeated. One vote does not define you. A single good choice does not make you successful, and a single bad choice does not make you a failure. What matters is the pattern. Identities are formed through repeated evidence. When the same type of action keeps appearing, the brain accepts it as truth. You begin to believe the story you are constantly proving to yourself. This perspective removes pressure. You don't need to be perfect. You don't need to win every day. You just need to vote in the right direction more often than not. Missing a vote does not disqualify you. It simply means you show up again and cast the next one. Progress becomes sustainable because it is no longer all or nothing. James Clear emphasizes that habits are a double-edged sword. Just as good habits are votes for a positive identity, bad habits are votes for the opposite. Every time you choose distraction, avoidance, or comfort over growth, you are reinforcing an identity you may not want. This is why awareness matters. When you realize that every action is a vote, even small choices gain meaning. Another powerful aspect of this lesson is that identity is flexible. You are not trapped by your past votes. The moment you start voting differently, the identity begins to shift. Change is not about erasing old habits instantly. It is about consistently showing evidence for a new version of yourself. The deeper truth is that success is not a single achievement. It is a direction maintained over time. Habits are how you cast your votes. When your daily actions align with the person you want to become, success becomes a natural byproduct. You don't chase it, you live into it. In the end, your life is shaped not by one defining moment, but by thousands of small decisions. Each day, you hold the power to vote again. And with enough consistent votes, the identity you desire becomes undeniable. Real change is not about doing more. It's about doing the right small things consistently. Every habit you practice is a vote for the person you are becoming. So start small, stay consistent, and let time do the rest.